Well, good morning and hello from Mirador Television. Coming to the end of, we're looking towards the end of an extraordinarily difficult week. And all the way around, not just for us, but for everybody. Still slight uncertainty about what's happening with the COVID situation. Paul Fowle is along this morning. Will join us in a few minutes to give his view on various things. And all in all, while the weather has been half decent, and that's come to an end today, I shouldn't say that. It's not going to be too bad, but we're not going to have any sun today. Although the winds are going to drop, they can be quite light. At least I can keep my titfer on and make sure that it doesn't go hurtling down the street. But let's take a look at a couple of things that we should take a look at this time of the morning, I think. Okay, what's happening in the news? Well, let's look at the world first, where the United States and Saudi Arabia are brewing for a row over the Khashoggi killing. Now somebody has come up with some evidence that a private jet was used by the Saudi government in connection with that assassination. I can't remember how many years ago it was now, because these things take time to burble on through the diplomatic community. But the Americans say that there's a direct link, so they're about to fall out with what has often been called their best friend in the Middle East, Saudi Arabia. So we'll keep an eye on that and see what ramifications will be, because mostly, of course, it would be to do with oil. And we are still, no matter what else, we are dependent upon oil. Right, the budget is going to be painful, according to the experts. And once again, that's something we can talk to Paul about this morning. What does he expect in the budget? What would he do, because he's an ex-banker? What would he have done with the budget if he had been the Chancellor? Unemployment figures, they say, are going to be a shock. They haven't been released yet, but they say that they're going to be much higher than anticipated. And that wouldn't surprise me, because there's, in many ways, the government has been very cat-handed about. Let's see, make myself look a bit prettier. Indeed, the government has been a bit cat-handed about way it's supported various enterprises and sectors in our society, and although I don't have a lot of detail, one of our local councillors has said that they will stick to their green principles and not give in to any demands that budgets may be used to support business. Well, there we go. If you can afford a watering can to keep the country green, grab it now, because the chances are they won't be manufactured for much longer. They do get some funny ideas about where money comes from, these people. Well, they think it comes from you and I. Well, it's not coming from me anymore. I haven't got any. And I think that a few more million that are in the same boat. But by the same token, the council tax is going to go up. And where they are putting these things together in a circle, I have no idea. But I'm the amateur, so we'll talk to the professional about that in a moment as well. Teachers are going to decide the A-level results. So if you're at school and if you did well in class, you'll do well on your A-level results. That's a break from the past, because the marking is supposed to be totally independent to stop patronage and favoritism, of course. There's a big petition going, driven, I believe, by the Sun newspaper, although many others could be behind it, to get a June bank holiday to signal the end of COVID. And I must say that's the most sensible thing I've heard coming out of a day off, and particularly on the day that the pubs will be able to welcome us back to the bar, is an eminently sensible idea, in my view. Another interesting thing about COVID is they are now saying that they're developing a pill. So instead of a vaccine, we'll be able to pop a pill. That is another step forward. I think that it's in the formative stage at the moment, but if it does happen, it's an easy way to make sure that people do get a vaccine or do get some sort of protection against COVID. Because popping a pill, even though some people don't do it, and some sectors in society are notorious for keeping the pill under their tongue and then spitting it out if they don't want it. But by the same token, we really it is for most of us going to be a very easy way, instead of having to go down to the surgery and stand in the queue and be pierced by a needle. And Mount Etna may be erupting again. Some movement is expected during the week, so one of the things that you have to watch out for. Locally, the county council are saying that the Wallens and the Southover primary schools will actually lower the number of children that it will take in. And the weather is between 9 and 11 today. Cloudy, with clouds, no sun, although we return to some sun tomorrow, even though as the week goes on, it keeps getting a little cooler. So there you are. That's where we more or less are for the day, with a quick summary. We'll just remind you who we are, and then we'll go to our pal Paul. Well, here we are. It is 7:39 on the 25th of February in the year 2021. Not been an easy year so far, and all sorts of other things popping up. But let's go to our mainstay of the economy, Paul. There he is. Good morning, Paul.
Good morning, Keith. Good morning,
actually tried to get a fanfare for you. You'll have to do with that for the moment. But let me just remind you that our good friend Paul is a former banker and a former policeman. And that's a rare combination, and he's got an insight into a lot of things. So one of the things that is creeping up on the outside, Paul, that I'm sorry to throw a couple of things at you, because I know that you prepared some stuff, which we'll get around to in a minute, but is that the budget is starting to take center stage. What is Sunak going to do about the budget and trying to address some of the problems that the economy has undertaken or undergone because of COVID?
Well, it's going to be an unusual budget, I think, Keith, because you've got easing lockdown an easing economy. You can't. The fear will be, if we talk about spikes in COVID, there are spikes in the economy. In other words, spending. Now we go with once COVID seems to be cracked. So I've got it. I've actually put it number 3 on my list. For the viewers, that's good. I think we've had so much COVID. Let's do economy and the other things. The economy now is the government should concentrate on that. That's going to be the killer. Unemployment will be high, probably higher than most pundits think. People will want to spend money. It's a car crash waiting to happen, Keith. That's the problem. There will not be a budget like this for a long time, or I don't think we probably have one. It's actually, I'll come on to Philip Hammond, the ex-chancellor. It's actually a war budget. What we've been doing, as Philip Hammond rightly says, is we've been fighting a war. It's a war against COVID. The war's over. We've spent a lot. What's going to happen now? I've no idea what will happen in detail, but I know exactly what the cycle like, and it's going to be painful at some stages. If I could just come on to this is a key thing. Philip Hammond, the ex-chancellor, I picked this up, told Boris, and I think he's right, tell the public some difficult home truths about the economy. And I think we've all got to recognise that, whether you understand economics, whether you understand budgets, whether you are spent. I think the unusual situation, which I've analysed, is that the government's broke with its spending and the public are broke with their lack of salary and spending, Keith. You have, again, another car crash there, potentially. So while all this is going on in Saudi Arabia and America, etc., we've got to sort this out pretty quickly, because you will either have a very unhappy population or a very unhappy government that really is constantly getting criticised for being maybe a bit too overcautious. But you can see what I mean. There's two sides to this. The government can try and control it, which won't be popular for us. If the government doesn't actually ensure the economy is run on sensible, prudent control, then of course all hell will get loose, Keith. We'll have a rising inflation. So there is a danger of a powder keg of things coming together. I'm not being alarmist, but there's other people better informed than me that have made that point. I'm hoping that the public don't go mad in spending, because that would ease the situation. If you like, I liken it like it's like dealing with a wound. You've got to let the wound actually over a period of time. You can't suddenly make a wound better, can you? Which means that, as I said, the public has to take its lead for the government, but I wouldn't like to be the chancellor of this budget. Put it that way.
Well, let's pretend that you are the chancellor, and looking at the situation is. What do you think would be the most difficult decision for you to make in this budget? What is going to be the most contentious thing?
Well, control of flow of money, getting after all, the city's been closed for ages, Keith. The Bank of England has been closed. They've got to get the financial institutions back and running. That's another thing. Right. And then, of course, you've got, once the city starts coming alive, and as we know, it's 38% of Britain's GDP. Actually, now that we've got COVID under wraps, I believe, and let's hope we have, I think the city has to start getting back into we've then got to rely on other parties. So, I mean, we're not the only ones going through this, Keith. It's the budgets of Holland, of America will be difficult as well. I don't know the details, as I say, but it's got to be a budget which doesn't crucify the public, who clearly will want to spend and have some fun. And I hope it doesn't also mislead the public, where they say, you go ahead, don't worry about that. There's got to be control from the government. But we're in a democratic country, Keith. We obviously don't like being told what to do by the government. They can advise it, but it's rather like social distancing, isn't it? You get some students who just don't give a monkeys. You've got some people who'll just spend, because in the long run we're dead, is the old saying. So with it, I can't give the details, but they've got to get the city moving again. And again, we're in the hands. Remember, it's a global problem, this, Keith. So we're all. America's got the same problems. So I would imagine the governments have to. It's going to take a time. I think as somebody said about lockdown, we're easing lockdown. It's the same with the economy. We have to ease into it and not expect too much. Unemployment will be high. The problem I foresee is where deserving causes, i.e. trying to get people back to work, there won't be the money for it, Keith. And then you've got the argument, do we print money, etc.? And we're back into a potential spiral. So honestly, rather like a doctor can't say what the outcome is COVID, as an economist and a banker, I can't see in detail what the budget will be. But I just think they've got to steer a very difficult course, because they'll either upset the public or they'll get things wrong, which means Britain could be in an economic malaise for a while. That's my under.
So it sounds you would approve of the fact that there is a movement to give us a bank holiday on the day that COVID ends, so we can have a day off, ready to be shocked the day after that.
Yeah. No, it's not going to be like that. I don't think it works that way, Keith. I mean, let's look at the again. I like the fact Philip Hammond has mentioned that we're fighting a war. We fought various wars. It's rather like Germany. When Germany was completely annihilated, everyone, they got help, of course, but within 10 years, Germany was back as an acceptable economy, etc. But there's no easy fix for this one, Keith. I don't think. I don't know how high the unemployment. Yeah, I've heard unemployment's higher. I haven't seen the figures yet. When they give the figures,
I understand that they're going to be a bit shocking. But let me say this. I'll ask you this, Paul, because I just said, okay, we're going to have a bank holiday so that we can wake up the next day and hit things. 10 years to the modern generation is a lifetime, whereas 10 years in 1945 was looking into a future. I don't think we see things at all the same. So therefore, I would assume that the reaction is going to be different.
Well, that's it, Keith. Because let's take. I mean, we're old chaps. After the war, the public obviously didn't like what happened. I mean, with rationing, etc. But they stiff upper lip. It was, Keith. And I'm not having to go at the younger generation, but they've been more or less brought up that you don't have to do the stiff upper lip. If there's something that you need, you can buy it, etc., and you get the money however you get it. Yeah. So really, this is where democracy and capitalism actually comes to a thud, because democratically, people are allowed to say, well, government have advised us to do this, but I don't see why I should do it. Capitalism-wise, it obviously does affect capitalism, the flow of capital, etc. It also, so there's kind of so many things in being, Keith. I think to balance the budget, well, A, is impossible at the moment because of what's happened. I don't know the figures of the government's help to all the institutions, all the charities, etc. And every government's been good in giving money. Yeah. Trouble is, they've got themselves in the foot, and by all this killing by kindness, we're all going to go on the same road, and it won't be easy. First of all, I'm not going to pretend it's not going to be easy. Yeah, exactly. But then, Keith, throughout life, whether we have a strike or whatever, you've got to put up with these things. We can't expect, we've got lots of money, we're always going to be spending, we're always going to be great. It's some people that you have to pull your belt in sometimes. And that's an old wartime expression. Whether you're 17 or 80 or 50 or you should probably be prudent in what you spend. You can't simply say, I spent it, or the government or the debt collector will be okay with that. No, because it's a crunch time coming now.
Yes. Now I've noticed, Paul. I don't know whether you've noticed the same thing, but it's young ladies that keep reminding me that I'm old. That's why I'm trying very hard to get the Spencer Tracy look. The trouble is that you can see the youngsters now. I'm trying to get the Spencer Tracy look, and they look at you. They have no idea who Spencer Tracy is, or Catherine Hepburn, or some of the old greats. So you're right. When we're old, but one of the things that I really think that they do miss, with all due respect, and it's a hobby horse of mine, is experience helps get you through a lot of crises. If you've been there, done that, then it's easier the second time round that you hit it. And that's perhaps one thing where these people that are a bit dismissive of age are going to find that people like Ussens can be useful. But then again, one can't tell because trying to read the minds of those people who rush to the beach the moment that they're allowed to, to take a half a minute away is beyond me. So perhaps they'll never ever come together. Let me just go to one local thing, Paul, because I want to get your view on this. The Greens have put out a press release. I don't have the exact press release in front of me, but the import of it is we are not going to change tack to try and support businesses with our overall budget. What we've actually put aside for green projects will stay green projects, and the economy and the problems that the government may have or locally we may have aren't going to be able to touch any of that money. Now, that to me sounds a bit unrealistic, but you know that I'm an old curmudgeon. And I quite often take a very deep-seated and entrenchable view about things. With that sort of approach to things, how do you feel that will help or hinder our economy locally?
Right. I know this might sound contentious. I've always viewed the Green Party as the Green lobby, really. I don't really... yes, they're a formulated party and they're a wonderful cause, but you can't really call them a proper party. And I've actually... Caroline Lucas, who I admire and know, has done a fantastic job. But they're too small to have that much. From acorns come great things, but they've got to be realistic. They're right in saying that the idealistic approach is very good on paper, Keith, and it's good that they are going to finance green. But hold it, you can't. You're a party. You're in national government, etc., and involved in politics. You've got to be fair to all. So they're being very, very selective, aren't they, in that respect? Which is, I guess I read their manifesto years ago. Obviously, green issues, but they, through their own decision, they're dealing with all of society. Yeah, they are a party. So if you are a party and constitutionally a party, you shouldn't act like this. And I can see why they've done it, but in the scheme of things at the moment, does that impress the public? I don't think so.
Yeah.
What's your view?
Well, I mean, they took power, of course, at the last election. So they've been going for about 2 years now, I suppose. And indeed, many of them had never been in a position of authority.
Yep.
Now, I don't blame them. I blame the system.
No, I don't. Yes.
I don't like this cabinet system. I think that it's iniquitous. The trouble is that they were all for changing it until they actually got to power, and then they discovered how they could wield various things, and they put the brakes on. It is ever thus. So when you say they may not be a proper political party, is they know how to behave like politicians. That's for sure. and you're quite right, Paul. And I'm sorry because I know that a number of Greens watch this, and I've got a number of friends who are members of the Green Party, and I quite accept their viewpoint, but they sometimes are a bit unrealistic, and that does not work to the benefit of us all.
That's right. Yeah, I guess what it is, Keith, it's going to be hard. We've all got to be. It sounds corny. We've all got to be united in the way we go forward. But as you know, it doesn't work that way. We could be very fragmented, which would mean we'll have 2 or 3 years of probably a difficult society and a difficult economy. Let's not bandy words around. But if the government's sensible, if people are sensible, obviously the kids and the cards thing, okay, that's got to be curbed as well. But how do you curb it? It's a democracy. I think it was Karl Marx said, this is a problem with democracy and capitalism. It's a great idea, but when you get into difficulties, boy, they're difficulties. And that's what happens. So, it's a tough one. I wouldn't like to be the Chancellor. I wouldn't like to be Boris in this situation. But the good news is that COVID seems to be over. That's got to be a big plus for him and the public. So, but then, we've got to face the next challenge. So we've covered health. We've now got economy, which could be as tough as COVID. So I don't want to sound gloomy to viewers. I think it can be sorted out, but I'm not sure whether we have the ability or the cohesion in politics or in local government, etc., to actually see this through. There'll be lots of bickering, etc. And you can imagine the chats in Parliament about this. If there is any economic controls, etc., there'd be a big hoo-ha. So it's not an easy one, Keith, because at the end of the day, if you ask a politician now, whether it's the Green Party or Boris, they can't say anything about that because we've really let the economy get through by its teeth while unemployment's gone up, etc. Now we've got to face it. It's I presume everyone's prepared for that, but there's got to be a plan of action, and I'd love to know what that plan of action is. But that's for another day. But we've got to be aware that it's not going to be easy. That's what I've told my.
All right. Well, we'll look at a few things for the people that pay the bills, and we'll just go back to the news headlines, and then we'll come back to you, Paul, and we'll have another chat because there are some key things which, now that we're easing our mind from COVID as a threat, as a danger, of course, we've got to start to look at the realities of life. So here we go for my.
Well said.
When you've missed the train, don't despair. Have a nice cup of coffee. And perhaps a mince pie. At the Runaway on Lewes Station. After that, why worry about the next train? The Runaway on Lewes Station. Relaxation beyond compare.
Okay, it's 7:59. It's just turned 8 o'clock. Bang on 8 o'clock on the 25th of February in 2021. And in the news headlines this morning, the US and Saudi are about to fall out. Why would we be worried about that? Well, we'll ask Paul in a little moment or so. Of course, the Saudis are the biggest producer of oil and are always said to be America's greatest friend in the Middle East. They're about to fall out. What is going to be the fallout for us? The budget is going to be painful. We've already had some comment from Paul Fowle on that, and on the unemployment figures. We don't know what the unemployment figures are, but the betting or the assessment and looking at them earlier is not going to be very comfortable reading. That the teachers are going to decide A-level results. Maybe some pupils will breathe a sigh of relief, particularly if they get along well with the teacher, and others may think, "Oh no, is old Baldy is likely to not give me a very good mark because he doesn't like me." A June bank holiday in the offing on the day that COVID comes to an end. Is it a good idea? Well, so far I can't find anybody who's arguing against it. Another looking upwards for COVID is that there is now being developed a pill, so we don't have to get a vaccine; we can actually get a pill, and not a bad idea at all. And Mount Etna is rumbling, ready to erupt, and perhaps it's just the time that it should erupt, just to remind us what's going on in the world, because it is not a very pretty picture. As far as the weather is concerned, it's going to be between 9 and 11 degrees today. There'll be no sun. It will be cloudy, but I don't think we've got any rain either. And the winds will be light, which I'm always very grateful for. Right, let's go back to Paul Fowle. And Paul, one of the things that I wanted to just talk to you very briefly about is this a question of oil prices. I know we've been trying to go green and so on, but we still are hugely dependent upon oil. And if there's going to be a row between the America and the Saudis, what's that going to mean for us here in Lewes?
Well, bearing in mind we're one of America's friends, if you look at it, America is self-reliant now on oil. They're autonomous. They don't need Saudi Arabia as they used to, Keith. That's the main thing. Secondly, Saudi Arabian regime is clearly dodgy. I'll be nice in that respect. I think it'll be 5-0 to America because the Saudis have no bargaining power anymore. I think Russia is getting fed up with them. The fact they're committing all these atrocities, trying to bomb Yemen out of existence. And I've banked Saudi companies, Keith, as a banker in the city. Very fine people, but very much a totalitarian regime. On all counts, they haven't got a chance. Saudi Arabia, they've got no bargaining power, as far as I know. As I say, a year ago, I believe America is self-sufficient completely on oil. We, being a friend of theirs, can always get oil from them. Saudis used to be important. Aramco, they're a giant company. They're not. Yes, they're still important, but they have more to lose than the West, and they haven't got many friends anymore. The system is barbaric, as we know. They've cheesed off Iraq. They've cheesed off Iran. They haven't got many friends. I think there'll be a quick meeting between Joe Biden and the king, and it'll be all sorted out. I can't see how it can be that. It's important because they are a big oil producer, but there's much bigger oil producers. For example, I'm trying to think of the islands off Saudi Arabia. Sorry, it's gone. Yeah, Venezuela is a bigger oil producer. I think Russia is up there, etc. So 10, 15 years ago, they were number one and rocking and rolling. They haven't got the same bargaining power. They can't blackmail anybody. And as I say, I'm not exactly impressed with the regime, neither are most people I speak to. So it's going to be much to do about nothing. There's going to be no war, Keith, and like that's rumbling. It's posturing because the Saudis know. There's something I used to give a lecture on stuff like this. The founder of the Saudi in Lawrence Arabia's time said a great thing. He said, as we have come from the desert, so we shall return to the desert. And at the end of the day, they're a desert kingdom that's running out of friends and not and it's got oil still. But why would you buy oil from somebody who's upset you? So bingo. But as I say, America is self-sufficient, so I don't see the problem there. If I'm wrong, somebody correct me. But they are self-sufficient in oil, which the Saudis aren't happy about, of course. We'll still buy oil from them, I expect. But do we actually want to deal with people like that if there's enough oil? Is there an oil dearth in the world? I don't know, Keith. But there's a lot. It's intricacy. As I say, I've banked Saudi. I've met them. They're very polite over here, etc. But they've. It's to me, it's got the veneer of a niceness about it that's absolutely ruthless, and we don't want to deal with people like that. Okay.
Well, I'm very interested in you propounding the my lips this morning, and I didn't have a drink last night. I promise you, is propounding the view about morality in business. But it's often been an accepted point of view that morality just plays no part in business whatsoever. Do you think that that's changing? Is the world changing for the better?
It is. The thing, I'm an unusual person, Keith, apart from being a policeman. I suppose I took that with me. In banking, I was always very fair, and I didn't introduce, I did introduce some morality, because there should be some flexibility. Everyone thinks the city is a ruthless dog eat dog. Well, it can be, but also you can help a lot, and without banks, society wouldn't function. So I've no problem with that. Morality should enter, Keith. Yes, it should. We had, I'll tell you a quick example here. We had, it's done and dusted, so there's no confidentiality. We had a Saudi sheikh at Credit Lyonnais, the bank I was working at, the big French bank, who brought in £1 million into the branch, and he was turned away. Possible money laundering. He complained, etc. Our French boss just rang up the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, and said, "Do that again, and we'll just desist dealing with you." Now that's a quick story from what I can remember, but they are. I mean, they're it's a cash kingdom, Keith, and it's their morals are very different from ours. I still think very educated. Notice most of the Saudi sheikhs are studying in Britain and love Britain, and we like them. But their rule, I mean, it's not exactly a nice place to be, Keith, if you're not a sheikh or not one of the 7 people who's related to the sheikh. So yeah, your morality should come in, Keith. I don't care if once you drop morality from business, you're in deep doo-doo. And that's
I'm laughing, Paul, because I just actually was checking on something on my phone, and there are the morning things is you have you need to put funds in by 2:30, otherwise you'll go into an unapproved overdraft. And I thought, I'm just like the Chancellor at the moment, because I actually what I do is I pop down and I put money in at lunchtime, and the other day I popped down and the bank was closed because somebody inside had been found to have corona virus. And I thought what you said earlier is the poor old Chancellor is, if he wants some money, he can pop around to the Bank of England, but they're closed as well. So I'm feeling like the Chancellor. Paul, let me get your opinion on some other things, because I'm not sure whether it's set in stone yet, but the suggestion is that teachers will now decide A-level results. And of course, the whole idea of having an examination board and not having teachers decide the results of their own pupils was so that favoritism and patronage didn't play a part. Is this? No. We've been worried as a society about our educational system during the past year. Is this going to help or hinder?
I suppose two arguments, Keith. As we're in emergency and difficult times, then I suppose they've got to find a quick remedy with the marks coming up and the A-levels coming up. But if my son was dealt like that, I'd probably complain. I do think that it should still be exams. What is their reasoning that they can't fit in Why are they doing this, Keith? I've not read the whole story, but why aren't there exams? Is it because of social distance?
I think that with schools still arguing whether they're going to go back on the 8th of March, is that everything is backed up. And I suppose I do have some sympathy, because if you look at schools as you look at, say, a business, is we can't expect even the high street shop will go back on a Monday, open up the doors and say, welcome, come on in. I mean, they're going to have all the problems of stock and getting their own cash flow going and so on and so forth. And I suppose schools are a bit the same. Is you can open up the doors, but you can't expect them just to hit the ground. Well, they can hit the ground running, but even then, they're not going to go too fast in getting back to normal. And I suppose, really, if we're talking about March that they go back, when would you normally sit A levels? July, or a little earlier than that. So not much time, and I would imagine that it's just they're worried silly that it's either that or not at all.
Yeah, but the counter argument there, Keith, is that it's A levels is such an important exam for a child or a student that it should go ahead if they can. If they can't, because of logistic lack of funds. Let's face it, I'm not banging teachers here. I know many. I've got lots of friends who are teachers. They've had a lot of time off as well. What has the teachers' union said that we will not do the exams? Is it who's actually made this decision, or where's it come from? Is it the government? Is it the voice of the teachers' union? Because let's face it, teachers have had a lot of time off, and they do a good job. I've had time off, Keith, and lost about £30,000 in the last year and a half. So
that's right.
Yeah, I know. But the point I'm making is that surely we live in it's fighting a war, which is what Hammond is absolutely right about. In a war, certain niceties and whatever go out of the window. If you can do it, knuckle it down and do it. So I take both. I've got teacher friends. I went out with a teacher a few years ago. I think they're fantastic, like nurses. But if they could have squeezed these kids in, because you're facing a personal decision by a teacher. If I was a parent and quite political, I'd say, well, okay, you've given Johnny that. Why have you given why have you given them more marks? You see my point. You could have parents questioning, and if someone like me and you, if I as a policeman can do 2 days without sleep, when I was a policeman, when you had something on, you wouldn't just leave, would you? So I'm trying. You see my angle, Keith. I'm trying to.
Yes, I do. And, and perhaps one of the things that is going to be the changes that we're all trying to forecast is that this idea that you can go to work at 10 in the morning and come home at 2 in the afternoon is all going to change. Perhaps we're going to have to go back to the work ethic of immediately post-war Britain, where people work their cotton socks off. I mean, it is interesting, isn't it, Paul, that we've now got a massive industry called football. And that in the industrial era, in the 1800s, is that the reason that it got the boost was that those industrialists who were seen to be sort of far-reaching in their views actually gave the workers Saturday afternoon off so that they could go and watch football.
Yeah, that's right. Yes.
not so very long ago.
I was a boy in the 1800s.
I was a callow youth. Yes.
My views are a bit blind, because I knew that was going on. I'd heard it on the radio, but I hadn't gone into depth on this story. I'm just putting forward what I could see happening. I'm one of these people who put scenarios in front. There's no immediate solution to anything. You have to work it out. So I'm just thinking of the pupils. Will it affect because A levels, I understand, are still important, are they? They were in my day.
I mean, it's difficult to say what's important now, isn't it? I mean, you in fact, Robert McDonald, that I had on a couple of weeks ago, who got an MBE, I think it was, for introducing training and so on, is pointed out that the apprenticeship system that we had in the 1950s and the 1960s and even the 1970s was a very, very good system in this country. And then we decided to do away with it so that everybody could get a degree. I wonder whether, in fact, we shall move away from the importance of degrees and even A levels, because the importance of A level is to get a university place. But are you? Is it going to be so important, particularly if it's going to be a hard graft to get out of the economic mire that we are in? Is it going to be that more important? I have no idea. Right, we just have to take one or two little bits of business, because believe it or not, Mr. Fowle, it is 8:15. We've been rabbiting on for 3/4 of an hour. So we better just let somebody else to take a little two seconds to do it.
Okay.
And let's just take a moment to remember those people who have been high in our affection and will remain so, I suspect, for many, many months, and I hope years to come. Those people who stood at the front line. And there we are. It is easy, Paul, to today's hero is tomorrow's forgotten soldier, veteran, as indeed probably the worst case that I can remember of that. It was the Vietnam War, where these young men went off to a vicious war as young heroes and came back, and nobody wanted to have anything to do with them. So I think that we need to remember those nurses and doctors, because there will come a time in the not too distant future where something will happen, and then suddenly it'll be the hospital's fault or it'll be the NHS's fault. Mind you, I don't, as an organisation, I don't hold much grip for the NHS, but doctors and nurses, I found have been an exceptionally high standard here. And apart from which, I love my doctor and I love my consultant, because they're two very, very lovely ladies, both somewhere, I would say, in their mid to late 40s. And it's always a joy to talk and go to the surgery. The thing is, I've got to stop going 3 times a day.
Keith, can I come in? Can I come in here and make an observation? You've just seen exactly. Yeah. Listen to this. You've just seen people who put them. When I went into hospital, I've been in for 4 operations, as you know. I went in at 1 o'clock in the morning. Now, again, I don't know what the teachers have done, but you could argue this, that the nurse could have easily said, well, sorry, we can't really fit you in. It's time we went. I don't know what the teachers think, because it seems a similar thing. The doctors and nurses will work for 2 days, 3 days to save a life. Now, in a certain way, an A level is a key to what's good about life. You get to university, yeah. So without, again, I'm doing this blind, but is there not an element of the teachers being, could the authorities have paid the teachers extra money to have gone through with the A-level exams? Again, I'm going to do some delving when I get back. There's so many I've got an agenda of about 7 subjects here, so I can't cover everything. But I'm just interested you make that point, because the doctors and nurses prove that in a fighting spirit how good they are, and generally the population should follow them. So I'm just a bit worried. As I say, I've only spoken to teachers recently, a few teacher friends of mine. They seemed relaxed about things, but is there not an argument that they could just, for extra money, put themselves out? And I don't know why.
I mean, I remember not too long ago, I don't know whether it was in this country or somewhere, where the talk was that they would start school at sort of 8 o'clock in the morning and go till 2,
Yeah.
and then another shift would start and go until 8 at night. I mean, that sounds eminently sensible to me too. If we're finding schools overcrowded, or not enough time for teachers, of course, I would imagine the unions would squeal at that. But the unions squeal at everything, and we understand that it's part of the game. They squeal, we make silly suggestions, and ultimately, what comes out is something that is workable and good.
But it is unusual. I think in my day, I'm going back many years, that the A levels would have gone ahead by hook or by crook. That's my view of the time when I did A levels. And again, I might be an old so and so, but I'll do some more reading on this. I'll speak to. I've got a headmaster friend I know who I'll speak to. Is it their union? Is it the government? Is it who's actually orchestrating this? I don't know. So. Anyway,
I'm glad that you said that you're an old so-and-so, because I'm beginning to feel younger every day, and I don't want to leave you behind, Paul. Let's take a little wander, because Mount Etna is about to erupt. And one of the things that I've been, I think, 3 times to Pompeii now, and found it fascinating. And of course, we all think is, well, why didn't they run away? But first of all, they had no idea, as I understand it, that the effect of the lava and so on was going to be so quick. But secondly, it was gases that killed most of them, not the lava itself. So is Mount Etna going to just be nice fireworks? Or once again, are we going to see a human tragedy which is hidden behind headlines of more important things, or apparently more important things going on? I don't know much about Mount Etna. I don't know whether you do. But volcanoes can be surprisingly dangerous things.
Oh, yes. Well, I would think the Italian government, if they got any sense, would move the citizens out first of all. If it is that bad, Keith, I don't know. Have they had an evacuation? Do you know of?
I don't know that they have so far. And apparently, what's happened is it's rumbled. It rumbled last week with a spark here and there. But the experts are saying, watch out! This coming week, it could well sort of start to boil over. How serious it is at this stage, I'm not sure. But of course, in our lifetime, not only in our lifetime, but in a time when we were old guys, we had is it Mount St. Helens in Washington State in the United States, which actually a mountain I know. I mean, I lived in Vancouver, and it's easy to look at those mountains as you look south of the border, and of course it killed a lot of people for the same reason that Vesuvius did with the gases and so on. And there is some very dramatic footage of a journalist who went up there and then filmed him trying to get out, and he only just made it.
There's one. I saw that. I mean,
the reason that I raised that, Paul, is that sometimes we forget some of the practical things while we're struggling with the economy and we're struggling with our health and so on. So we forget some of the practical things, and nature has an uncanny habit of coming and spanking us, as one economist, intelligence
Yeah.
unit analyst once said to me. He was talking about the markets. I love the phrase. He said, the markets rose up and spanked them. But nature has a habit of spanking us and reminding us that we are not totally in control. Having said that, have you been listening into any of the chatter on Mars?
On Mars,
Apparently they've now turned on the microphones of the spacecraft, and that they can hear sounds, which I haven't. That only came out tapping across the wires this morning that was happening. There's always that argument: is if a tree falls in a forest and there's nobody around, does it make any noise?
Well, that's right.
Bearing in mind that it's an ear.
My question would be: in look at the economies of Russia, America, and Britain, and everyone. You're spending an awful lot of money on a project where, as you say, they could be helping the poor in Houston. So again, it's America is, as we know, a twin society. You've got awful poor and very, very wealthy people. Keith, you've been to Houston, I'm sure. You've been to when I went to Houston, it was unbelievably awful. You think that's the world's top economy, and people live like that, yeah. So it's a two-way thing. Yeah. We're in danger of that as well. I'm hoping. Okay, let's look. I've had a go at the budget, etc. I'm hoping that if people are sensible, they listen to what Nanny is saying to them, because the government has to nanny people a bit, I think, here. We'll pull through even stronger, Keith. And that was the wartime spirit. Trouble is, with all the online and all the media hype and everybody expecting, I want to be prime minister. Everybody expects these days. They don't want to actually give things. They help people rather than, it's a taking society, Keith, because people are being brought up that way. But it's also a giving society. If we can do more of the giving and help each other, I'm hoping we've learned a lesson. I certainly have. My son has. I talk to my family. They think they're going to be better people, but who knows? In a year's time, we'll all be on the streets striking, etc. Why don't we just get our act together and just take the best of what we've had before and mix with the best of what our future is? And if you take the two together, but we won't learn, Keith, in 3 or 4 months' time, the spending spree will, I'll let some go another one. So, but that's the key thing, Keith. I don't know what how the government is going to curb people from overspending. 16-year-olds have got debts of 100,000 now, Keith. I saw a program while I was in Australia. They've got a credit card it was a 17, 18-year-old. It was scary. They had 150,000 on their Aussie credit cards, and the maitre d' or the commentator said, "So, how do you feel about that?" "Well, are you going to pay it back?" "No." And that is what worries me. It's a different society. When you've got to say no sometimes, and you've got to. I think the government it's tough love, isn't it? Really.
Yeah.
But
God bless you. We'll keep an eye on that, because we're both expecting some sort of reform. It's 2 minutes to the end of the program. I think we do need to remind people who we are, and then don't go away. We'll come back to say goodbye. Well, I don't know where the hour goes, but it is exactly 8:30. Paul Fowle, thank you for being with us. We will tell people that over the next 10 days, we are developing Paul because he makes so much sense as opposed to me, who is just frippery, that he will soon have his own program so that he can bring a little bit of realism to what's happening in our economy. The sort of realism he's brought today is what it is at the end of COVID going to mean to you and I on the high street, in our pocket, in the home, and while putting those into context of financial markets and explaining what they're about. So get used to his face. You'll see much more of it. Thanks, Paul.
Cheers, Keith.
And we'll see you next week.
Okay. Bye, viewers. Bye.
So there we are. That's the end of another morning. God bless us all. And we've taken a look at the news headlines. We've analysed some of the things that are coming out of it. We tried to give our viewpoint, and it is only our viewpoint. Remember, we're expressing opinions, but it is opinion based on fact. So they're not bad opinions at all. But you are willing and welcome to actually. How do I know whether you're willing? Is that you are welcome to come on this program, and please contact us, and we're very happy to bring you in so that you can chat to Paul and myself and other guests as the day goes on. All right, see you next. Well, we may see you later in the day, or we may see you tomorrow morning. Till then, toodle pip.